We continue to target Hamas leaders, and the Air Force has eliminated the new commander of the Hamas Sheja'iyya battalion, Imad Krikai. He had previously taken over after we eliminated the previous commander, and his successor should be on notice too. We will get to all the Hamas October 7th monsters. Every Hamas terrorist is a dead man walking. On the humanitarian front, Israel is working to open the Kerem Shalom crossing for inspections of aid to Gaza. There is already excess capacity at Nitzana to inspect those aid trucks, and when Kerem Shalom opens, we will double that capacity. There are no restrictions on the Israeli side for humanitarian necessities such as food, water and medication to enter Gaza, and there is no hold-up on the Israeli side. On the contrary, there is excess capacity. The problem is the bottleneck at the Rafah crossing, and the problem is that international agencies are not keeping pace and delivering aid at the same pace that Israel is able to inspect it. The bottleneck is on the part of the international agencies that have not yet condemned Hamas's theft of aid or its abuse of the humanitarian zone to fire rockets. The UN needs to do better. The aid is there, and they need to distribute it. An important update from the northern border, where Hezbollah is escalating its aggression. On Saturday night, Hezbollah launched a barrage of rockets at Israeli territory, including from a launch site 20 meters away from a United Nations compound in southern Lebanon. In doing so, Hezbollah is systematically endangering the lives of UNIFIL soldiers and violating the toothless Security Council Resolution 1701, which was supposed to keep Hezbollah north of the Litani River. This grave incident is an important reminder of why the only way the war in Gaza can end is with the destruction of Hamas. Israel simply cannot accept an end to the fighting that leaves a terrorist army in control of neighboring territory, even one with an international force nominally mandating its enforcement. Yesterday, IDF Chief of Staff Eylon Levy made clear the situation on the northern border must end with a very clear change, so that our 250,000 internally displaced persons, evacuees north and south, can return to their homes safely. Israel is responding to Hezbollah aggression by striking the sources of fire, including with artillery, tanks, mortar shells, helicopters and fighter jets. We are also intercepting launches from Lebanon. We will respond firmly to any continued aggression, and we repeat that Israel is not interested in a two-front war, but if Hezbollah decides to drag Israel into a full-scale war, the consequences will be severe for Hezbollah and for the state of Lebanon. Finally, regarding the day after Hamas, yesterday the government of Israel approved a framework for the strategic multi-year plan to rehabilitate and develop the parts of southern Israel devastated by the October 7th massacre. The plan provides for an infrastructure and broad budgetary framework for 5 years, 2024 to 2028, of up to 18 billion shekels. But for the communities destroyed on October 7th to rise back out of the ashes, the Hamas terror regime can no longer be their neighbor. This war will end when it is safe for the children of Be'eri and Nir Oz to sleep in their beds again. This war will end when the diplomats who voted to save Hamas's skin at the United Nations would feel safe babysitting little Abigail Idan in Kfar Aza. Let's call it the diplomat babysitter test for ending this war. And for that to happen, for the survivors to rebuild their lives out of the unspeakable tragedy of the October 7th massacre, the terror regime that massacred their families must go, and it will. This war which Hamas started will continue as long as is necessary to achieve the 3 goals of this war: eliminating Hamas, getting all the hostages home, and making sure that the Gaza Strip can never threaten the people of Israel again. It is unfortunate that the UN Secretary General is doubling down on his pledge to keep the Hamas terror regime on life support. I don't think any UN Secretary General in history has gone so far to secure the survival of a terrorist organization, and we of course welcome the remarks by the British Defence Secretary Grant Shapps this morning that the world must prepare and work internationally for the future, for the day after Hamas, for the day when there will be security for Israelis and opportunities for Palestinians who realize that terrorism has brought them nothing but misery, and they need to live alongside Israel instead of seeking to destroy it. That's the end of today's update. As always, we'll take your questions now. A reminder, as always, if you have questions, please try to submit them in advance so we can get you the best answers possible. Now, please type your questions in the chat. If you can state your name and news agency, please, and we'll go through those questions now. Thank you.
David Isaac from JNS. Regarding the Red Cross, is Israel satisfied with the efforts of the organizations, or does the Israeli government feel that the ICRC should be doing more to gain access and help the hostages?
The Red Cross has not yet visited the hostages, and that is evidence enough that not enough has been done to secure access to the Red Cross. The Prime Minister has spoken with the President of the International Committee of the Red Cross and asked her to intercede to get Qatar to use its leverage over Hamas to secure the access to those hostages. We're talking about extremely vulnerable people, 2 babies. We're talking about elderly people abducted without their medication, some people abducted with life-threatening injuries, and the stories that we're hearing from hostages who have survived the Hamas terror dungeons are appalling. We know that we have not a minute to spare in order to save the lives of the remaining hostages, and we're demanding that the Red Cross do more. There is much more that it can be doing, as, by the way, within its messaging and social media, it continues to run operations that support the Hamas narrative of this war, instead of fighting for the return of those hostages. There is more that can be done. There is more that must be done by the Red Cross and by all governments in the world until the Red Cross is able to see those hostages on the way to their immediate, safe and unconditional return home to their families.
Question from Jim Williams, Zenga International News Service, Washington, D.C. Could you please update us on the humanitarian help being provided to approximately 250,000 displaced Israeli citizens? I have reported on the amazing support they are getting from their fellow Israelis, but if you could provide some more information on the government efforts, it would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Very important question, shining a spotlight on the 250,000 evacuees we have inside Israel, some from areas under mandatory evacuation orders, including the whole town of Kiryat Shmona. We are fighting this war so that it is safe for them to return to their homes and they can sleep without fearing that a terrorist army is going to invade over our border and massacre them or abduct them in their sleep. Now, those evacuees from the areas of mandatory evacuation have been put up in hotels and guest houses around the country at the expense of the government, of the taxpayer. We want to get them home as quickly as we can, but if you have specific questions about the efforts to support those internally displaced persons, we'll check with the Home Front Command and we'll circle back to you. Drop us a message, please.
Thank you, that's all.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.
Recording stopped.